While announcing new members of his executive council yesterday, the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, said the mandate of the MEC for Social Development, Mbali Hlophe, is to eradicate drugs in townships. Lesufi also said the MEC will have to find ways to change the public perception of homeless people. We're now joined by the MEC for Social Development, Ms. Mbali Hlophe, to tell us about the plans for the department. A very good morning to you, and thank you very much for indulging us. We do understand that you're not feeling so well this morning, so we'll try and keep it brief. Perhaps maybe your understanding of the social ills that are plaguing the province of Gauteng.
Good morning and hello to all your viewers. I think one is really pleased and comforted that the Premier has had such confidence to at least want that we must continue in the role, but now looking at social development and agriculture. As you know, Premier Panyaza Lesufi is quite passionate about making sure that there's township development, and part of what he has indicated numerous times was that our democracy will not mean much if we still have people that reside within townships that have food insecurity, lack of infrastructure, lack of access, and so forth and so forth. And he's spoken quite passionately about that, and that's really part of the things that we are going to focus on. And particularly for a department like social development and agriculture, our role is really to make sure that we target what would be the social ills. You were speaking earlier about the drug usage or substance usage, because it's also drugs, it's alcohol. You'll know that we've got quite a huge and prevalent usage of alcohol intake, so it's part of the things that we need to deal with. But also addressing food insecurity, because that's also part of the things that's a huge challenge amongst our society, and it would have compounded with the COVID pandemic. So we have a lot of work that we have to do, but we are motivated and know that with the resources that government has, we must be able to utilize them strategically in a manner that we can be able to target and ensure that at least the basics we're able to cover. And this department can be able to do that.
Sure. The Premier's plans are indeed awe-inspiring, only if they can be followed up by action. So this idea of wanting to take Nyaope addicts for 6 months to a farm owned by the state to rehabilitate them, are you able to give us more plans on that? While we appreciate the announcement, of course, was only made yesterday, but what is the plan with that?
So as you know, as you correctly indicate, the announcement was only made yesterday. So part of the work that all of us are going to be doing as individuals that have now been recently appointed or reappointed into other departments is to have a chat with the HODs and the senior executives of each department, have a look into what the plans of the departments are, what work they've been doing, where they've been having challenges and so forth, and really then bring in the strategic guidance and direction as to what it is that this administration wants to see as guided by the Premier. So we will be embarking on that work. We'll be having a very busy week going through the plans, but what I can safely indicate is that you will know that the department already houses individuals that are either abused, individuals that are homeless and so forth. So it's about looking into the infrastructure that is currently in place and how do we then integrate these ones, especially those that are struggling with Nyaope, and how do we bring them the professional assistance that they require to clean themselves of this addiction, and importantly, how do we redirect their energies towards positive things that they can do instead of the negative usage of Nyaope. And this is something that, you'll know, one was the MEC of Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation, and part of the things that we had pioneered that side was to look at the young individuals that perform on the streets, who are homeless, but they utilize their streets as an avenue to perform, to be seen, and so forth. And one of the things that we had indicated was that the department began to adopt them and also speak quite a lot to society, changing how they view them, because we view them as individuals that must be ignored. The moment you get to a robot, you immediately close your window because you don't want to interact with them and so forth. And we're saying, look, if these people are not robbing, they're standing at the robots and they're performing for money. it shows you that they don't want to engage themselves in criminal activities, but they want to still make some form of income, and they use the streets as their platform. So it's about integrating all these different projects and work that the Department of Health does with substance abuse, the Department of Sports Arts does as far as keeping people positively engaged in their development programs, and now the Department of Social Development and the institutions that it has to house these individuals, and how we integrate all these different elements of development that we are doing and coordinating them towards something that's quite successful. So we'll be having that sit down with the colleagues and really getting to see and understand the department better. It's what resources it has before it, both human resource and also from an infrastructure point of view as to the access and where we are able to make sure that we locate them.
Fair enough. Is there one particular area of interest that maybe you are focusing on that you would really like to tackle in the next 2 years?
Food insecurity for me, I think, is the greatest challenge that we have. You know, the thought with there are people that have no form of security as far as what they're going to eat. I mean, the stats are showing us that with kids that go to our no-fee schools, some of them only eat once, and that's the food that they get at school. So that food, the project and the mandate of food insecurity, I think, for me, is a huge thing that we need to tackle. And you would have seen that the two departments, both social development and agriculture, have been combined, which really allows one to build an ecosystem, both from the agriculture point of view, where individuals are making the food, but also how do we make sure that our communities begin to utilize the lands that they do have, even if it's small, because technology has advanced where you've got vertical agriculture and so forth. So even within townships, we can be able to introduce that, whether it's the townships, the squatter camps, amahostela, and so forth. We can be able to introduce some of these technologies so that people begin to create food for themselves and they don't sleep hungry. For me, I think that is a huge thing that we need to deal with, especially appreciating that we're just out of the COVID pandemic and a lot of people are still trying to get back on their feet. So we need to deal with having food security, because as you know, once that base has been resolved, then people are able to start worrying about how they can make money and so forth and so forth. So it's about dealing with the basics so that individuals are able to move to their next level of actualization.
Just before we let you go, you did mention that you come from the sport portfolio. The Premier yesterday mentioning that the people of townships deserve better in terms of stadiums. Sometimes you see empty, dusty pitches and saying a lot of work from whomever is going to be taking over that portfolio needs to be done. How would you assess your impact in terms of the portfolio that you're coming from?
I think we did the best we could, and I'm quite happy. I mean, with the guidance that we're given by former Premier Makura and the work and the strategic focus that he had given. I mean, we were able, Gauteng is the only province that has been able to bring in the Wednesday leagues back into schools. So it's about bringing back sports and arts back into schools. And we had an appreciation that young people, especially within our Northeast schools, are not engaged in that through sports, through arts. So they do their academic activities, they go back home, they squalor around and wait until their parents come home. And in that gap, when they are not supervised, is where the biggest problem and the challenges arise, because that's when kids get engaged in substance abuse, early pregnancies, and so forth and so forth. So by bringing back that big program, which is a huge investment, that the province is making, I'm very happy that at least we're able to launch that. And I know and trust that the new MEC will continue in that work. If you look at community sports and arts, it was also another area that we dealt with. I spoke earlier about how we took the young people who are homeless and working on the streets and integrated them within the projects of the department, etc. So I think, you know, there's a lot of projects that we're able to bring in that are developmental in nature. But of course, I mean, the arts and sports are one of those industries that really need a lot of assistance, government attention, but also, as far as the arts are concerned, greater regulation, which is the biggest thing that artists have complained about. And we are very
Thank you very much. I'm so sorry to
continue.
Thank you very much. Point well made. Mbali Hlophe is the new MEC for social development.